So, warm good morning to all. At the onset, I would like to take this opportunity to express my deep sense of gratitude to DPU Pharmacy and the IICE cell at the Institute for providing me this opportunity to interact with you students today. I would like to begin the session by actually posing two questions. Do any of you students have today a very exciting idea with you? And do you wish to convert your idea into a business? If the answer to both of these questions is yes, then probably you could be the founder of a startup in the days to come. A startup is nothing but a business model which actually drives innovation and the economy of a particular country. If you look at the startup ecosystem today, both globally as well as in India, it is growing at a very, very fast pace. Today, India ranks second in terms of the number of startups, just behind the United States of America. It is also very, very interesting to note that the healthcare sector occupies today the second position in terms of global distribution of startups. So here there is lots of opportunity for all of us who belong to the healthcare sector. Now for a startup.
Excuse me, ma'am, just a minute. We are not on next slide. We are still on the first slide. Can you reshare the screen? Yes, we can continue.
Okay. So as I was telling, India today ranks second in terms of number of startups. Healthcare sector is occupying second position. Now for a particular startup to be established, generating funds and investment is very, very, very important. Now, if you look at the current statistics, the healthcare startups are said to be the fastest growing in terms of volume of investment. About 41.2 billion US dollars has been currently invested in the healthcare startups in the last 5 years. In India, the startup ecosystem is growing at a very tremendous pace, and therefore these are what are being projected as the startup projections in 2025. It is projected that there would be more than 1 lakh startups by 2025 in India. More than 150 of these startups will be able to grow into profitable business and would be able to transform them into what are called the unicorns. Unicorns are nothing but startups which are able to grow and generate business and has an evaluation of more than $1 billion US. With this startup culture that is going to be set up in India in the coming decade, it would surely generate job to millions of people across the country. These are some interesting startup statistics. As we know, US is a leading country in terms of number of startups. Very interesting to note that a major of these startups actually began at home businesses. So it sounds very, very promising. More than 60% of these startups in the decade to come will be AI driven. We know the AI technology is growing at a very tremendous pace. Even in the pharma sector, we have a lot of our pharmaceutical operations which are going to be AI driven. And so it is anticipated that the startups in the coming decade will be mainly focusing on the AI technology. Coming to the Indian scenario, we know India is now the second largest startup ecosystem in the world, growing at a very fast pace of about 12 to 15%. Very interesting to note that the number of the women entrepreneurs in startups is very, very high at around 14%. And Bangalore city has been currently listed among the world's leading 20 cities in terms of number of startups. Now, to establish a startup, the journey is relatively not easy. It is very long. It is very challenging. So here, looking at the journey for a startup, the first and the most crucial step in the startup journey is the generation of a research idea. So ideation, innovation is a key component towards setting up a startup. Now, generation of a research idea should actually revolve around the definition of an identified problem statement. Once we understand the problem statement, we should be able to propose various research solutions to address that particular problem statement. Once we have our research solutions, we then need to do some lab-based studies to validate our research solution that we have proposed. And we should be able to effectively convert our research solution into what we call as a proof of concept studies. So when we look at proof of concept studies, these actually involve very preliminary data which we carry out in the lab to validate our research hypothesis and to establish the feasibility or the viability or the practicability of the research solution that we are proposing. We would then require to work on the proof of concept and actually take it to the prototype level. Now, a prototype is actually a working model of our research solution. So initially, we may look at lab scale prototypes, and then we need to upgrade our prototypes to the working prototypes which can work in the intended environment. So this process of converting prototype into what is called the minimum viable product is a very, very, very important part of the startup journey. A minimum viable product is actually referred to as any product which has all those essential features such that we can provide that product or that innovation to our target customer or our user. Now, when we look at any innovation, we may be looking at a new product, we may be looking at a new technology or a new service. And whatever we are doing, whatever innovation we are doing, we need to reach to our target customers, our users, or our beneficiaries. So putting in required qualities such that they can be used by the user and can satisfy the user is very, very, very important. So this process of prototype to minimum viable product is one of the most crucial steps in the startup journey. Now, we need to go to minimum viable product relatively at a quicker pace in a startup, because that would relatively help us to take effective feedback from our user or our target customers. This effective feedback mechanism in turn would relatively help us to understand where our technology stands today, what are the shortcomings and flaws in our technology. It will help us to identify the gaps in our technology and therefore rework, reframe and refine our product, such that we should be then able to convert our minimum viable product into what we call as a minimum marketable product. Now, as a term itself indicates, minimum marketable product is that particular product or innovation that you have designed, which we can give to our end user, and most importantly, our end user is now ready to pay for your innovation. Now, especially in the service sector, there is another terminology also which they use. They call it as a minimum lovable product. It means that your end user or your target customer is ready to pay for your product, but at the same time, he loves to use your product. He is ready to recommend your product to other customers. So this feature is more applicable to the service sector. We also need to then look at what are further refinements needed in our product and then convert what is called a minimum marketable product into what we call a fully fledged product, where a product is now capable of being commercialized, it can move into the market, and it can reach to millions of target customers and users across the domain sector. Now, when we look at startups, the success rate of startups actually is not very promising. It is currently evaluated as less than 10%. If you see over here, these are some of the reasons that have been identified why startups have not been able to sustain. The prime reason which is put forth here is that there is no market need for the particular innovation that startup has proposed. So when we look forward to setting up a startup, or when we are looking at a particular research idea generation, the most important criteria that we need to initially understand is the current market in that particular domain area. We need to understand the current market segments, our competitors which are there in the market, what are the various products or technology that is available today, what are the features of those technologies, are there any loopholes or gaps in that particular technology, is there a need for a new innovation in that particular technology? Will our innovation really drive the market in terms of cost reduction? Will it drive the market, or will it reach to society in terms of societal improvement? All these components we need to consider when we are looking at a research idea. The second reason identified is actually startups, as we all know, require a lot of money, finance, most important component for driving a business. And therefore, the lack of adequate finances with startups is another major reason why startups sometimes are not able to sustain. So there are various avenues which are already identified through which startups can actually generate funding. And the most popular one is what is called the bootstrapping or the self-funding. You can also look forward to other funding avenues like crowdfunding, angel investment, and the venture capitalists. For research students like you, the best way that you can look forward for establishing your research idea is through what is called business incubators and accelerators. Today, if you see, the government of India is actually promoting the startup culture, and it has set up a large number of such incubators and accelerators at various national bodies across the country. So you can approach such agencies and you can see whether you can incubate your idea with these accelerators, who will help you to convert your research idea into a proof of concept, a prototype, and then finally take it towards commercialization. Another very important way in which you research students can look forward for funding is through participation in various research contests, both at a national and international level, and also through various other government funding schemes. Here, I would just like to share with you some very exciting startups. Many of you may be aware, Labster, one of the most growing platform, which is currently providing education to millions of school students across the globe. So what they actually provide is the practical based experiments, mainly in the domain areas of science and technology. If you look today in India, there are a large number of schools, especially who do not have today also adequate facilities to demonstrate technology and practical based applications to their students. So Labster is one such edtech startup, which is actually now established and providing services to more than 2,000 institutes and to more than 30 million students across the globe. Another very important startup is what is called the ideation. It is a revolutionary startup in the area of camera tracking and recognition industry. What this particular technology is, it uses AI to actually able to capture what is called the gaze of an individual. So you have various AI algorithms which they use to actually track how a person reacts to when he looks at a new product or a technology that is available in the market, and it tries to assimilate that data and convert it into in terms of the customer attention, interest, and intention. And this feedback mechanisms are then effectively utilized to revise and upgrade the technology. Another very important startup is what is the Bot Neuro. It is a Swiss-based technology, and they are providing very exciting solutions. That is a non-invasive neuromodulation therapy for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. If you know today, Alzheimer's disease is progressing at a very, very fast pace. So this particular startup, what are they doing is actually they're collecting the data from the MRI and the PET scans of patients, and then using various AI-based algorithms. They are using computer simulations to actually identify those areas in the brain which need simulations, and using computer simulations, they are delivering the simulations to these areas through what they call as a wearable technology. So basically, it is a non-invasive technology, and it would surely provide a revolutionary breakthrough in the treatment of the Alzheimer's disease in the years to come. Now we will spend some time on research idea, because we know ideation is the key component towards what is called developing your new product, process, or technology. Now, when we look at a research idea, we always use these terminologies. We say that a research idea should be new. Now, when we look at the dictionary meaning of new, new is defined as anything that is recently created or made. So suppose I use a statement that I have purchased a new car. It implies that I probably had a car and I now have purchased a new car. So when we look at a research idea, however, newness is important, but along with newness, we need to ensure that our research idea is novel. Now, when we say novel, it includes newness, it includes an idea which is original, and most importantly, it includes a research idea which is interesting. Interesting not only to you, but to the scientific community. Now, along with newness and novelty, you need to also ensure that your research idea is innovative. Now, when we look at innovativeness, it means it involves something original, it involves something interesting, it involves something that is more advanced, it involves something which is unusual and something out of the block. So innovative thinking is very, very important, and putting all these components together while looking at a research idea is very, very important. Another important component that we need to look upon is whether our research idea is commercially viable. Are we able to convert it into a product, a new technology, or a service that can be commercialized? Today, when we look at a research idea, a very, very important emphasis is given to whether our research idea has a social relevance. We know today that there are various issues in society, and therefore, if you can look at research ideas which will work towards solving one of these issues in societies, that would be the best way in which we would be able to ideate and innovate. Where do research ideas come from? So here I'm going to discuss some of the common avenues and the very well established avenues through which you can generate research ideas. One of the most important approach to generating a research idea is through interaction, through brainstorming sessions and discussions with the scientific community, something which we usually very much neglect when we ideate or look upon a new research idea. We are usually confined to our own labs, we do our own thinking, we do not discuss with other peers, and therefore we may probably miss on certain components that can be actually looked upon if you look into this approach of ideation. So as research students, who is the scientific community? Scientific community may include your peers, your colleagues, your teachers at your institutes, your faculty guides, your mentors. You may also reach out to various industry experts or research experts in that particular domain area. Today, if you see, technology is growing at a very, very fast pace. Every day we hear of new technology, new products, new services. So ideation can come from here, being alert to new ideas and interventions that are being introduced at a very fast pace. We can also look into the gaps in current technologies and ideate upon those. If you look at today, there are a large number of funding bodies at the national level. Even in India, we have various government bodies like the DBT, Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, the CSIR, ICMR, Ayush. All these funding bodies actually work in various thrust areas of research, and they actually provide funding for research in these particular domain areas. So understanding the priority of these funding agencies and then selecting a research idea in these domain areas would be another very good approach to ideation. This is because we know for us to translate our idea into a viable proof of concept to prototype to commercialization, we need funds. And so the funds can come from these funding agencies. As we all are aware, India is a country which is very, very rich in traditional knowledge, be it the Ayurveda, the homeopathy, the Siddha, or the Unani systems. There is a lot of traditional knowledge which is available. But if you look at the current scenario of clinical interventions which are being followed, if you see whether it is acute or chronic conditions, most of the interventions mainly are practiced through the modern systems of medicine. So this has usually mainly happened because we are not being able to translate our traditional knowledge into viable products and services. So ideation can also happen in this particular area. Nevertheless, at this point, I would like to mention that all of us need to inculcate certain core values of curiosity, inquisitiveness, the passion to work towards a particular cause, and most importantly, empathy towards social needs. And all these components can surely drive ideation and innovation. For the larger interest of the students here, who are especially the undergraduate students, I have just listed down some of the literature review sources which you can look forward to or look into to understand the current technologies and innovations that have been developed. So some of them like the Scopus, Embase, the Web of Science, Medline Plus, PubMed, these are very, very important databases which you can look into to understand the current research which is being carried out in various thrust areas. At this point, I would like to just mention this particular quote. It is put forth by Brian Chesky, who's a co-founder of Airbnb. Airbnb, as many of you may be knowing, it is a California-based company which is today providing what are called rental solutions in the area of tourism. So he actually told that if we try to have a good idea, we wouldn't have been able to think of a good idea. You just have to find the solution for a problem in your life. So I find this statement relatively very, very true, and we can always correlate with it. If we have a research idea, which is very close to us, which is there in society, to which we can relate to, then we will surely try to ideate upon it and look upon whether we can provide a particular solution to that particular problem. Now, when we look at a research idea, formulating right questions or researchable questions is very, very important. So here, this is a concept or a criteria which is called the FINER criteria. It is not something new. It was put forth in 2007 by Hali et al. He told that if you need to have a research idea, the research idea should satisfy these particular criteria. Your research idea should be feasible. It should be interesting. It should be novel. It should be ethical. And most importantly, it should be relevant to the current real-time situations and scenario. We all come from the healthcare sector, and we know ethical practices are very, very important in our domain area. So when we propose a new idea or innovate in this domain area, the ethical concerns are very, very high, and it is a must. Looking into feasibility of the research solutions that we are proposing is also very important. Now, when we look at feasibility, it means we need to assess the balance, the best balance between the idea that we are proposing and the various resources that we need to answer the particular research question. So now when we look at resources or the factors that we need to consider, most importantly, we need to identify resources, especially the financial resources, to convert our research idea into a POC, into a prototype, and then into a commercial product. Having sufficient technical expertise with us is another important component. We need to form a core team with core members having diverse expertise so that they can work towards achieving a common objective or a goal. Another important concern is the time. Do we have that sufficient time for putting that particular innovation of ours into a product such that it can reach to our target customers? So this we can very much correlate to the COVID times. We know the COVID pandemic struck all of us out of the blue in 2019 December, and since then when it stuck, we knew at that point of time the medical professionals were relatively clueless on what are the clinical interventions to be given to such patients. And this actually led to a lot of ideation and a lot of innovation. We saw that there was a very big drive towards drug discovery and development programs by various research organizations and funding bodies across the entire country. And we can see what all innovations have taken in the last 2 years to address this particular issue. Remdesivir, the drug which was a repurposed drug introduced in October 2020 for the treatment of the COVID patients, and very currently in December 2021, Molnupiravir, another antiviral drug by Merck, which has been currently approved by US FDA for the treatment of COVID patients. In addition to this, you are all very well much aware about the vaccine development process, which took place in the last 2 years. Traditionally, if you want to put forth a new vaccine for any particular condition, the process is very, very long. You need to wait 12 to 15 years for a vaccine development to take place. But in this time of COVID, researchers and the scientific community understood the importance of time to innovate and put products into the market. So if you see currently, today in India itself, we have more than 7 vaccines which are available, available to the people to take, so that we can protect ourselves against the COVID virus. And we should be very proud to state that we have our own indigenous vaccine, the Covaxin, which was put forth by Bharat Biotech, and also the Covishield manufactured by the Serum Institute. At this point, I would like some time to spend on the process of ideation, innovation, translating our research ideas into research solutions, into POCs, into prototypes towards commercialization. So now when we look at the research ideation process, the first and the foremost, most important component is the definition of the problem statement. So identifying the proper problem statement is very, very important. And to get to the best problem statement, we may use something what they call as a how might be questions. Whenever we select a problem statement, we need to ensure that our problem statement is very clearly defined. Our problem statement should correlate with a real-time situation. We should be able to validate the problem statement both in terms of the magnitude and the significance of the problem. And most importantly, we should be able to understand who are the beneficiaries who are currently impacted by this problem statement. So this is one component again that we fail to identify is the beneficiaries, the target customers, or the users. Now, beneficiary, a term is, this particular term actually correlates to all those individuals who will benefit from the innovation that we are going to propose. So involving the beneficiaries right at the stage of our identification of the problem is very, very important, so that we are able to address the problem statement from a 360-degree angle and explore the entire problem space, so that we are able to understand problem very, very thoroughly, so that we can innovate and provide the best solution. The next step is considering whether the problem statement we have identified is actually worth solving. So we sometimes look at certain problem statements, we just ideate upon them and we try to work upon them, but we really do not look into whether that problem statement is really worth solving. So when we say really worth solving, is understanding whether that particular problem is currently an unsolved problem. Most importantly, whether that particular problem has a particular degree of significance or magnitude. and whether it is impacted or it is actually faced by a multiple of beneficiaries in that particular area. So understanding all these components is very, very important to understand the process of identification of our problem. The second step is looking upon the research idea or research hypothesis. So for every problem statement that we have identified, we will need to propose various research hypotheses. We need to ensure that we cover the entire problem or solution space that is available. So here also a lot of research hypothesis has to be worked upon. We should not think of only one. We should look at all type of research hypothesis that we can put forth by in pen and paper, and then work on each of these and understand how we would be able to translate this particular research solution into a POC, or what we call as a prototype. Most important step is the identification of the beneficiaries. So we need to ensure that we have identified our beneficiary or our target customer, and most effectively, we are sure that whatever technology or product or service we are developing, we will be able to deliver it to the intended customer with all necessary features so that it can effectively solve the particular problem statement that we wish to address. Now here, actually, I would like to put forth the example of actually what is called the Jeevan movement. This is actually a movement which is now being carried out by CMR along with what is called the Grey for Good organization. They actually put forth what they call as an iodine patch, and an iodine patch which was designed like a bindi. Now, all of us know that in India, the traditional custom of putting a bindi by women is very, very high. If you look at the statistics of in terms of the deficiency of iodine, especially in women in rural and tribal areas, it is very, very high. And we know this iodine deficiency can be overcome by appropriate intake of iodine in our diet. But when we look at these women in rural areas and tribal areas, this is not the solution that is looking at diet, because we know the problems that they face. And we know that if this condition exists of iodine deficiency, it can have very strong medical implications. It can lead to brain damage. It can lead to what we call breast cancer. It can lead to various pregnancy complications and, of course, hypothyroidism. So looking into the gravity of these situations, especially with the statistics of women in rural and tribal area who had this particular iodine deficiency, these two organizations together have come up with that innovative iodine patch in the form of a bindi, which can be worn by the woman and iodine delivered to them in the required proportion. So currently this technology has reached to millions of women in India. However, this particular ICMR along with the Grey for Good, they itself have identified one of the loopholes in the technology. We know that India is a country with vast cultural heritage. So we know that there are a good percentage
It's a start.
So currently, actually, they are working in this particular gap of their own technology that is trying to address the issue where they can deliver this iodine to even women who do not actually don what a bindi. The most important part of the ideation process is working on the research solution or your research product. So this part is very, very important. You need to ensure that you are providing a research solution, innovating on a research solution that has a very strong value proposition that can be validated against the intended customer or user. You have a value proposition which is relatively cost effective and which can be easily prototyped and commercialized. Now, along with these 4 steps that we saw, that is identification of the problem statement, looking into the various research hypotheses or solutions, translating your solutions into what is called the actual value propositions through a particular new product, a new technology, or a new service. And of course, understanding your beneficiaries or the target customers or users involved. So in addition to all these components, we know that if we actually need to take our innovation, which is maybe probably at the stage of a POC or a prototype, towards commercialization, working on the business model of the innovation becomes very, very important. So for this translation of our research idea from a proof of concept to a prototype, and from a prototype to a commercially viable product, we need to adopt some business model. I will not go into much details, only discuss quickly some of the components. So when we look at a business model, one of the most important steps that we need to understand is what are the various activities that we need for this particular business. For those activities, what are the various resources that are required? Based on the activities and the resources that are required, who should be our key partners? Then we need to look upon the value proposition that we are offering, need to ensure that it has innovative components so that it can compete with the current products or technology in that particular domain area. We need to understand whether our product has a business potential. For this, we need to have a thorough understanding of the competitive landscape, where we need to actually look into who are our potential competitors, do a very good SWOT analysis, and look upon what are our strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, especially when we plan to introduce our product in the domestic or the global market. Very important timelines for conversion of our prototype into the product for commercialization. Another important component is, of course, the finances. So cost structure is very important. What are the revenue streams so that we are able to build on, sustain, and convert our startups into a profit-making organization. Identification of target customers, as I already told you, very, very important. And most important, it's who makes your organization structure of your startup. So here it is very important that you need to involve a team of individuals who work towards achieving a common goal and objective. At this point of time, I would like to take some time to actually look into one of the National Innovation Contests, actually, because our team participated in this. I would like to just give you some idea of this very excellent platform today, which is provided by the Ministry of Education, Innovation Cell, AICTE, which provides this platform where, as research students, you can put forth your research ideas or prototypes or proof of concept studies for the ideation process. Now, who can participate in this NIC? All students, right from their undergraduate to PhDs in various IIC institutes, can participate. You can form your own team of 10 members and take a faculty as a mentor who will guide you throughout the process. This NIC competition or this contest actually takes place in various stages. So I'll just list down the stages. In stage 1, you are expected to initially submit your idea or your proof of concept or your innovation to the IIC cell of the institute. If the IIC cell of the institute can work on your ideas, and promising and innovative ideas can be then submitted to the MOE's IIC, who actually then looks into your submission and shortlists it if it is actually innovative. In the second stage, if you are shortlisted, actually throughout these stages, the MOU takes lots of efforts to provide a lot of training and counseling sessions and equips you through various interactive sessions and networks you to interact with various business leaders and various research expertise in various domain areas. In stage 2, you are expected to submit your business plan. In stage 2, you have to propose your startup plan. And in stage 4, you have to present your plan in front of a panel. It is called the pitching round. And based on your components you have presented, you may finally be shortlisted for funding by MOE. I've just put forth here the various domain areas or themes on which you can actually ideate or innovate. And these are the usual theme areas in which various national bodies or various innovation contests are also held. So various domain areas, you can choose any of these areas, identify problem statements, and work on your innovation. When you're working on your innovation, as you progress from converting your solution to a proof of concept to prototype, you need to understand what they call as technology readiness level. So this is just a chart, a scale chart, which is given from a TRL level 0 to TRL level 6. And based on where you are, you can understand whether you are at ideation level or whether you have moved to proof of concept or whether you have moved to the prototype stage or whether you have moved ahead and moving towards commercialization. So usually between a TRL level of 0 to 2, we say that we are at the ideation level. When we move from TRL level 2 to TRL level 4, we say we are at the proof of concept stage. From TRL level 4 to 6 or 7, we say that we have moved into the prototype stage. And from 7 to 9, when you are able to translate, we move towards commercialization. Here, I would like to, at this point, share one interesting story of two socio-tech entrepreneurs. This is actually Abhijit and Vaishnavi. They work in the area of what is called as medical apparel. So they have set up their own medical apparel venture, which is called Kaina Med. Now we know with this COVID pandemic, there was a very big need for providing PPE kits for doctors who are working with the COVID patients. So they actually started their startup in these times, and they have actually manufactured and provided a lot of PPE kits to the medical professionals in this COVID times. But at this particular time, they began to actually innovate on their product, and they have come up with what they call as an innovative product, which they call as a EcoFlex scrub suits. The main component of this particular technology is that they are using 100% recycled polyester, which they are obtaining from PET bottles from the waste. So there's a very innovative technology they are proposing. And actually, these two are driven by a passion. And you all may be knowing Nike. Nike is one of the leading brands for footwear, mainly shoes. And when Nike began this particular brand, they had the major objective in mind that whoever puts on their shoes, mainly the runners and athletes, they should feel very comfortable in it. So these two social tech entrepreneurs are really inspired by the Nike concept. We know today Nike is one of the most leading brand in terms of the footwear. And these two entrepreneurs actually look forward to creating brand in the area of medical apparel. So they feel that doctors should not only don these apparels, but they should feel comfortable and they should feel good in it. So this is a very good idea they are working towards too. I have a video over here which I would like to share with you. Yeah. put it back.
At Electrocomponents, we At Electrocomponents, we share these values, and that's one reason why we're committed to a more sustainable world through education and innovative solutions that improve lives. That's why we've chosen the Washing Machine Project as our first global charity partner to mobilize our people, our customers, and suppliers to help improve lives through this fantastic cause.
Right now, we're making Divya 2 even easier to use. We've introduced multiple modes of interaction, so it's easier for people with disabilities to use. And we've even made it seated, so it promotes good posture.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video, and actually innovation with a big social commitment to reach out to millions of people across the globe. At this point, I would just like to share this screen with you, mainly to acquaint you with the various schemes and programs that are being conducted today by the Ministry of Education, Government of India, who are looking forward to promote innovations and startups, especially in educational institutes. So as you all are aware, at our institute also, we have an IIC cell through which various programs and training is being conducted. The MOE has various mentor-mentee programs. They organize various hackathons, so you can participate in what they call the Smart India Hackathon, Toycathon. They provide a lot of funding for innovation and startups, and also for IP filing. They also organize a number of contests. The one of the important platform which you students can and should use is a National Innovation Contest platform and the AICTE Chhatra Vishwakarma Award platform, where students like you can ideate, innovate, submit your research ideas, and of course get fundings from the government to translate your ideas into prototypes and towards commercialization. So very, very big platform provided, and I wish that all students actually look at these particular platforms and look forward to submitting their ideas in these particular programs and schemes of the Government of India. Also, I would like to state that during this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, there was actually a virtual startup meet which was held across a particular year. And because we qualified for the NIC and they are going to provide us funding for our innovation, we were able to put up actually a virtual stall in this startup meet. And through these virtual stalls, we could interact with various business people and with various other research scientists who express their interest in this particular component. So for networking, very good platforms, which is currently provided by the Government of India. So because we have participated in the NIC, I thought I would just take 2 minutes to actually put forth to you what we did. So we actually proposed what is called an innovative product, which we call Heal Magic. Now for me, this particular actually, and my team, this particular component or innovation that we did came actually from traditional knowledge. So as a child, I always remember that whenever we used to get some burns or scalds at home, my mother used to use or still continues to use this particular oil, which you would always keep. 2 minutes. I think the slide is not seen. Okay. So I think we had lots of interruption. Hope you were able to listen to what I'm saying. So this is the idea that we put forth at the NIC, for which we have received the funding. So we propose an innovative product, which we call Heal Magic. And for me and my team, this particular innovation actually came from traditional knowledge. So as I was just telling you, as a child, when we used to get any burns or scald, my mother would use this particular oil, which she would keep handy in the kitchen shelf. And as soon as she would apply this oil in that particular affected area, I remember the burning sensation like disappearing, a very good soothing feeling. There would be no redness at the site of application and absolutely no blister formations at the wound site. So I also use this product today in my kitchen. Some years before, it just came to me that probably if this particular oil which I'm using has such good applications, why don't I look upon at what this oil contains and why it is probably able to give these effects. So I did some lab-based studies, some GCMS and other studies, and we realized that this oil is very, very rich in what we call as polyunsaturated fatty acids. And these PUFAs actually have been extensively studied and documented to play a very vital role in the wound management process. So with this in mind, and with enough of scientific data to support our claims or a hypothesis, we went forward to actually preparing a product which we call Heal Magic. This is actually, we incorporated this particular oil in and fortified it with various other natural and herbal oils, mainly with the objective to expand the spectrum, because we know when there is a wound, there can be some infections at the wound site. So we included other components which can address the other issues. And for this particular product, we have currently published a patent with the Indian Patent Office. The most important part of this innovation is that we are using a main ingredient which is derived from waste of the poultry industry. So if you look today at the statistics, India currently ranks 4th in terms of poultry meat in the world, and the amount of the processing waste which is generated, especially the skin, is very, very high. If you look at the current disposal methods which are used, they either dump them into pits or composting is done, and all these processes actually lead to a lot of environmental and health hazards. So looking into this, we have proposed a solution where we are saying that we have a technology for management of this particular waste. And in addition to that, we have a technology for converting this waste into a product with therapeutic efficacy. The value proposition that we offered is that ours is a first time report of utilization of this oil in wound management. We have tested our product through preclinical studies in animal models, and it is found to be effective both in terms of the burn wounds as well as the excision wound in diabetic rats. And we have been able to convert that particular product into a working lab scale prototype, which we call as Heal Magic. And we look forward to taking our lab scale prototype through a suitable business model towards commercialization. So that is all I have for you. I would like to actually end with this statement that where there is curiosity, where there is empathy, and where there is inquisitiveness and passion, there will always be a drive for ideation and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your all experiences, knowledge in research and innovation today with us. Now I request Dr. Vinita ma'am to take the questions in the chat box. In the chat box.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful session. I may now request the participants to post their questions in the chat box. So there is one question in the chat box. How to identify the key partners during the business model development?
Okay. When we are looking at a particular innovation, maybe in terms of a new product or a new technology, we know that there are various steps which are involved. So one is having the product. The second is able to convert that product into what we call as a commercially viable product. So we need to consider factors like the cost of the product. We need to understand what are the revenue sources that can come in, who can support our venture. We need to understand the innovative components of our formulation. We need to understand the distribution channels through which we can make our product available to our target customers. So if we are able to outline our activities, connect our activities to the resources, and then therefore identifying partners who can help us with all these steps to take our product towards commercialization. So if you look, there are various business template models which are available. You can look at the websites where various business templates are available, and various research models are being proposed for different type of innovations.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. The next question is, what are the different platforms which are available for the innovations?
There are several platforms which are available for students. If you go to the funding sites, especially for research students, especially those research students who are looking forward to moving to higher degrees like PhDs and other, there are various platforms available for ideations. As I told you, for in NOE itself, MOE, there are two good platforms you can use. One is the Chhatra Vishwakarma Award. This is held every year, in which they call for ideas from students. So you can submit your ideas. So it is held at two levels. If they shortlist your idea, then you actually propose your idea at a regional convention. And if you are shortlisted at the regional convention, then you are required to demonstrate your prototype at a national level convention. So we were also very fortunate to have participated at the Chhatra Vishwakarma Award, and where my team of students were able to get the first prize in the waste management category. So this is also a very important platform, and of course the NIC. Along with this, actually, even the SPPU, which is just close to us over here, they have their own incubation cell. They also hold a number of startup or ideation competitions. So there are various venture competitions. There is something called the power competition. So through all these avenues, you can participate and try to see whether you can convert your ideas into innovative solutions.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this interesting session. There is one more question in the chat box. How to start thinking on innovation from a ground level? What should we refer for that?
Okay. So actually, If you look at ideation process, as I told you, I have discussed some of the various avenues, and of course, the most important is curiosity. Unless we think, unless we have a curious mind, a mind which generates questions, and the minute we start generating questions, we generate more questions, and when we have more questions, we try to look forward to what are the answers to these questions, and there we come upon the ideation. So without curiosity, without inquisitiveness, without a passion for research, for innovation, you will not be able to come up with a research idea. And today, another avenue and very important way to ideate is look at social needs. Look at the problems that are existing in society today. You can also specifically focus on various problems, especially in the healthcare sector, whether healthcare facilities are being made available to people across India, especially remote areas, tribal areas. Look at problem statements for them and try to ideate, because ideation with a social cause is very, very interesting and very rewarding and very satisfying.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, from IIC, we have one question. We also like to know your experience in the NIC and Vishwakarma Award competition. So which are the factors that actually lead your ideas and compared to the thousands of other competitors, which make your idea successful?
So the participation in NIC actually is a very, very long process. I remember that we had submitted the idea probably way back in around June 2020, and then probably it took the entire process 1.5 years. Currently, now in December 2021, we got our funding we have been shortlisted for funding by the MOE. So it is actually a very, very long process. So most important is to be able to be there and see that you participate at all levels and move ahead. So many times we submit ideas, and though we are shortlisted in the first stage, we don't put it good efforts and progress to the other levels. Or sometimes we just leave our ideas at those levels. So being there and being very persistent and very dedicated to ensuring that you move through all these stages is very important. And a very important component is that probably you may start with an idea, but to take it to the final level, during that process, you should be able to translate your idea to a POC, to a prototype. You should have at least a working model, a lab scale working model of your prototype, because unless you have that, they will not give you fundings. So they won't give you fundings just for an idea or just for an idea for which you have moved to the POC level. Moving to a prototype level becomes very, very important, because if you see the participation at these forums, it is very, very high. Thousands of entries are there. So from there, moving to the higher levels, we need to ensure that we have a working prototype of the solution that we are offering. And very important is that, is your solution innovative? Is it unusual? Is it the first time report? Is it something out of the block? Does it have a social impact? Okay, all these components are very, very important.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, we have one more question. How should our efforts be invested at the correct path in ongoing research? What should be included and what should be left?
Okay. So when you say correct path, there is actually no correct path, because when we look at any problem statement, there are several hypotheses that we propose. So I think something which we lack in many of the educational institutes, and probably in our institute also, is what is called brainstorming discussions with your peers, with your colleagues, with your mentors, something which we always fail to do. Because it is only through these discussions that we will realize whether we have identified the correct problem statement, and whether we are proposing the right research hypothesis or solution for that statement. So I feel there is no substitute to discussions, and we should form teams and groups and really meet at particular intervals and really participate in brainstorming discussions and ideate and innovate.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Any more questions from the participants? Yes, there is one more question, ma'am. How to pitch idea or innovation effectively in front of incubators within a short time so that we are able to get funding?
Now, getting funding from investors is a very, very challenging process. So when you look at pitching, there are various components that need to go into your pitching protocol. So I have not covered all those. Okay. So we have various components, and most important is your business model. You should be able to propose your business model. Just submitting your prototype or discussing your innovation will not do. Am I audible? It will not do. You need to ensure that you have a business model in place. And in that business model, you have worked upon all possible components. Maybe sometimes here, if we look into that NIC, actually, they had even asked us to give customer feedbacks. They had asked us to submit the financial involvements. They had even asked us to tell what is the current pricing of our products. Are we reaching out to customers for our products? What is the profit we are getting currently at this particular stage? So means they are thinking at a very higher level, but sometimes in our healthcare sector, for us to put a product into the market or to our end user becomes very, very difficult. We need to go through a very regulated process. So at least if you are able to propose a business model and look at the key components of the business model and present it effectively, and most importantly, I told very innovative solution where your panel who is there should be convinced that this is a novel idea, this is an out-of-box thinking, and probably it has a commercial value. I think we should be able to make it.